Hello and welcome to the 7th official episode of the Unnamed Political Podcast. I'm Clark Wahlberger.
And I'm Jack Horvath.
All right, and today we're going to be talking about current events, specifically Hillary Clinton, how her campaign seems to be taking a major hit.
Thank the Lord.
According in Kentucky, the recent conflict between a clerk issuing wedding licenses. Recent news about the Russian military's involvement in Syria. Of course, the ongoing refugee crisis in Europe.
For sure.
And then we're going to give you a bit of a special, I would suppose. We're going to both be listing our favorite and least favorite. We're going to be ranking them. Presidents post-1945. For this list, we're going to exclude FDR because he would unfairly tip the scales in his favor on all of them.
Definitely.
So we're going to count, quote-unquote, the modern presidents. We're going to rank them. And before we get into that, we do have some good news for those of you out here who have complained about our lack of quality, I would suppose, for
sure.
And we are working on an intro as we speak right now. Hopefully, we are going to have introduction with an the announcer being
Can you give his name now?
let's not give his name without permission, but a person who has an amazing voice. If he doesn't do something with his voice, it will be a waste.
For sure.
Yes, so hopefully that is coming along. We also want to try to add visuals to this soon. Probably not filming us quite yet because we're too young and innocent to expose ourselves to the internet. We may be adding more images just so that you guys have something to look at if you guys don't just listen to it. All right. I don't know. These are just complaints we've gotten, and we want to make things the way you want them.
For sure.
All right. So I suppose we'll delve into them. We'll try to give around 2 minutes to the current topics, and then the remainder of the time shall go to the presidential debate. If we go longer, we apologize, but that's what we're going to try to do.
Okay. All right.
Let's get started.
For sure. All right. So what do we want to talk about first? You want to talk about Hillary Clinton?
I say we talk about Hill Dog.
For sure. What do you think about her right now? She sucks, right?
Wow. This is going to get views for controversy. Yeah. Please share this with your friends if you think this is controversial. I don't think she sucks.
Well, not, but she's
I don't like her policies. I think she is taking major.
Oh yeah, 41% approval rating. She's garbage.
Hillary is not doing good right now. She is Of course, she just today issued a formal apology for her email scandal.
About time.
After, unfortunately, though, just yesterday stating that she would not apologize because she was allowed to do it. This kind of shows, obviously, a sign of weakness.
For sure.
And recently, it just seems that apparently there were classified emails on her server, and a Clinton aide has just pled the fifth in relation to emails in court.
Terrible.
Yes. For those who don't know, the only times you plead the fifth is when you can only incriminate yourself further.
You're guilty.
Yeah, you're basically stating that you're guilty.
Yep.
This seems like this could. I can see her recovering, but I don't. I think this may start to be the end. I think she may be able to turn things around. I mean, she's not looking at resigning from her campaign, I suppose, but this is definitely going. And if we have an effective Republican nominee, he should be able to hammer into her on this issue.
Riddle me this,
or she.
Friends.
If we have,
I have a question. Do you think that Hillary Clinton is the most untrustworthy candidate in the entire Republican and Democrat?
Out of all of them?
Yes. I'd say yes.
Based solely on the information I've been given right now, I would say yes.
Yeah, for sure.
Because I think we've already said this before. We don't agree with his policies, but we can definitely appreciate Bernie Sanders' honesty.
And both parties agree, too. Democrats and Republicans don't. Majority don't like her.
With the Republican nominees, most of them, seem pretty honest. Donald seems like he's an angry guy. He doesn't seem like he's a dishonest guy.
You supporting Donald Trump?
No. I'm just stating that he seems like I hope he's not going to be lying to the U.S. because I feel that's just. He just says it as he sees it. Lying's not really in his nature.
No, not really, not at all.
Jeb seems like he's pretty
Jeb
honest.
a lot.
Carson seems. Oh, I really hope he is.
Carson's good.
Carson seems like he's a very moral guy.
I like him.
Like Carson, Rubio, the remainder of them. I think they all seem pretty honest people. Of course, that could change at any time, but hopefully that won't.
Still got a year. So.
Mm-hmm. Oh yes, yeah. As we said before, there are children who will be born on Election Day, 2016, whose parents haven't even met yet. which is kind of interesting just to think about that. With Hillary, do you think if it starts to seem like she'll drop out, that that Joe may jump in, Biden?
I think he's going to come in soon. I actually legitimately think he'll run now.
I don't think he will run until he is positive that Hillary's done. Because if he goes in too early, I think he risks the part of being hammered on both sides, and also he could blow himself up because clearly he's been shown to he's been described as a Democrat George Bush.
Yeah, kind of.
For those who, George Bush has obviously had his fair share of
awkward moments,
speech flubs, and so has Mr. Biden.
Yeah.
Now, with regards to that, I don't see him jumping in unless it's absolutely positive that he's done. But I think that we definitely have a strong chance of seeing him. Do you think any other Democrats will jump in if it seems like Hillary's getting out?
I keep saying this. You might not agree with me.
You think Al Gore?
John Kerry 2016.
You think John Kerry?
Al Gore 2016. And hopefully it won't happen, but just came up with this. Dick Cheney.
Yeah, that I'm calling BS on.
Well, wouldn't it be nice to see Al Gore run?
Yes, I think it would be very nice to see Al run, but I do not really see that happening. I feel that aside from basically Joe Biden, possibly Al Gore, I don't think any other Republicans are going to run. I think Mitt is going to stay out of the race.
Probably.
I don't see him. He doesn't really have any reason to run. He said he wouldn't. Overall, I think.
Would you like to go into more detail about those Democratic candidates?
With the Democratic candidates, sure. So, in my opinion, I feel that Hillary, she's just not really able to connect with voters as well as she was. Clearly, as is shown by her issues, obviously, with the email scandal. In addition to that, you've just seen she's slowly, as she's been trying to defend herself, their persona of appeal to the more youthful voters has been crumbling. Obviously, if you've seen recently at I can't remember the exact location. Do you know where it is? Sorry, but I believe she was at a college campus and she was trying to appeal to the youth, and the majority of youth there, when asked, stated that they either supported Sanders or were just there because they thought it would be interesting. Sanders, again, I think he is definitely probably the most honest Democratic candidate, but I really can't see him being able to win the national vote, especially with his socialist policies and the fact that taxes would take a massive hike under his administration. I think Biden, he definitely poses the risk of blowing himself up very early into the campaign if he has another speech flub. But you never know. So, Jack, you want to start talking about the Kentucky clerk?
Heck yeah. I mean, this is recent news, and I haven't really delved into it much, but what I get from it is that this person, Kim Davis, is refusing to issue these licenses, which, say what you want about it.
She's kind of out of breath. Is this an important issue to you?
Everyone knows why I ran away.
Yeah, we apologize. The reason I was just talking for so long, we were recording this on Jack's phone, and it started running out, so he went to get a charger.
Grab a charger.
Yes, we apologize for that. Now,
Kim Davis, who issues these licenses, whether you like it or not, what do you think about it, Clark?
We apologize for having all sounds in the background. We do have an unfortunate
technical difficulty. It's stormy outside today.
Let's just say that, yes. So with that, I think it's a hard issue for us to deal
that's
with.
what I'm saying is hard.
Yeah. With relation to this issue, I feel that
Katrina.
Unfortunately, the law is the law, and I personally, as I said before, I personally feel that marriage is between a man and a woman. Jack, you said you agree with that.
For the most part. I mean, there are.
Yeah. Now, again, I was a proponent of having government be taken totally out of the concept.
Yeah.
Just allowing any two individuals,
anyone that wants it
regardless
can
of
get
gender,
benefits.
to apply for it, get benefits. If you want to call it marriage, that's up to you.
It's a union in the government's eyes.
Yes, a union.
I call it unions.
I don't know. I can't remember what I was going to. I had a term for it written up, some form of union.
It's called
I had it a couple. came up with a few years ago, and it slipped my mind. But do you think what she's doing is justified?
I just think she shouldn't have the job in the first place. If it's a religious obligation, you're not going to get any work done. Get a job that suits your religious obligations.
Do you think that should be applied to members of Islam or Judaism who have issues with their faith, or should
I think so. I think they should find
to
a
accommodate
job.
them? Or do you
Find
think all
another
religions
job.
should? I will agree with that. Do you think she should have been in prison for what she did?
No.
I think imprisonment was way too far. I think it's going to just cause more partisanship because all that's going to do is anger people who are extremely opposed.
She was in jail for days.
Yes, this just gives more and more fire. Why would
Ridiculous.
liberals support this? Because that just gives so much fire to the far right.
Definitely.
Fox News has been having a field day.
I bet. But I don't consider Fox News far right.
I wouldn't consider them far right, but I mean, of
Consider
course,
them right
compared to literally all other news
I consider them.
outlets,
Yeah, okay. I
they
agree with
are right at least.
that. Sure. Yeah.
All right.
So, I mean,
So with this, unfortunately, it just seems like both sides are kind of blowing this out of proportion. I feel unfortunately, if your personal beliefs prevent you from doing a job, regardless of what your religion is,
don't do that job. That's what it all comes down to. For real.
because in the end, you aren't going to do anything about this. They're just going to replace you with somebody else who will do that job. So if you personally believe that this is something wrong and you should be fighting against it, now, regardless of any issue, then do something that either allows you to practice your own beliefs or openly take a stance against what's going on and try to change it.
All right. Yeah, definitely.
All right. So that was pretty brief. You want to move on to Russian military in Syria?
Yeah, we could do that, and then we'll do our special topic.
All right.
Today.
So, despite what it may seem with our lack of action in the Ukraine, the U.S. and Russia are still not on good terms, and Russia
Definitely
still
not.
supports very horrible regimes, including the regime of Bashar al-Assad, the dictator of Syria, who has used chemical weapons on his own people,
Terrible atrocities.
killed thousands upon thousands, and is responsible for a bloody civil war that has no end in sight.
Do you think he's worse than Saddam Hussein?
Do I? Yes.
I think so.
I will say he is right now. He definitely appears to be worse than
I mean,
Saddam.
Saddam Hussein was kind of able to stabilize his government.
Saddam
Prevent from
Hussein was at
insurgencies.
least Saddam Hussein. He was a horrible person, and I'm glad he's gone now.
Right.
He was butchering many of his own people, but no, he wasn't using it. Well, of course, with the issue of Kuwait, but he wasn't. He wasn't causing this long drawn out civil war.
He never
in the
had
country.
any of those problems. He was able to keep it stabilized, although he did it in ways
He did
that
it
are
horribly,
controversial.
brutally, but at the moment it just seems that Bashar is never going to give in, and he is willing to basically see his entire country burn in order to do it.
Yeah.
Saddam was cowardly enough to flee when he knew it was.
Well, I
too
think if
late.
a U.S. coalition invasion happened in
Yeah.
Syria, he would flee too.
Now, of course, this leads to the issue of now it appears the U.S. may not be able to intervene in Syria if we have a liberal president, because that could, of course, mean conflict with Russia. Because these Russian military advisors and Russian military experts are assisting Bashar al-Assad,
Right.
and we, of course, are opposed to him.
Right.
It almost appears as though this seems to be the same form that we used in Vietnam, but in
Kinda.
Syria for Russia. With sending in aids, next thing it could be troops. If it seems that, and the U.S. may do nothing, as of course Bashar al-Assad is opposed to ISIS.
He is.
He's opposed to ISIS, but the Middle East is a very confusing place. If you have time,
For sure.
try to learn about it. If you don't, I don't blame you. But so with that, what do you think this means? Do you think now all the Republican candidates are saying, I think either they should have boots on the ground, or as Jeb Bush said, specifically special forces are now going to back off and say, well, we
I
don't
think
want
special forces aren't a bad idea, but I think ground troops, especially in a place where Russia's investing heavily in, like Syria, I think it would be a terrible decision to just go in and invade, because I think it could be the next, not World War III, but a major conflict.
I can see it
between the
definitely
US and Russia.
causing serious tensions. I can see if the need arises. Again, I think special forces are definitely necessary. At the moment, I don't know if ground troops are necessary.
No.
But
I wouldn't say
specifically,
so.
now it seems that Syria, we may not want to. I feel we should we need to show that we are the bigger power and tell
Right.
Russia to back out and say, we're going to put our troops there. If you engage, we will also, we need to toughen up. But directly combating ISIS, I see if we had to deploy ground troops, hopefully that wouldn't cause too much of an issue.
I don't think so.
In fact, if we take Bashar Assad out of the equation, it could possibly help to try to strengthen quote-unquote relations.
I think so.
If we were working against a common enemy. Although I don't feel relations should be strengthened considering Ukraine, of course.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's terrible. I think ground troops against the terrorists specifically and without the cooperation of Syria wouldn't be a terrible idea. Because those guys, because I think destabilize the Syrian government would be the first thing you want to do, and then worry about
from the U.S.'s point of view?
Yeah.
I think that's the U.S. And one of our key problems though, that we've seen is the U.S. We need to have a more effective strategy, not just for destabilizing governments, which we seem to be very good at, but for rebuilding governments, for rebuilding free elections, democratic process, a stable government that we're able to basically feel safe knowing that it exists. Now, again, we have always had the criticism that, like, as many Republicans have criticized Obama of saying that he just wants to ship jobs to Iraqis or something like that. Of course, we do need to be able to figure out a balanced way to be able to ensure that these nations are stable while not devoting funds to these nations to rebuild their economies while we're suffering in our own economies back home.
Right, definitely.
So I think we need to find a balance on that issue. So hopefully somebody will be able to find a solution soon, or we may just have to keep looking.
We need to get our priorities straight. That's a good closer.
Yeah. Would you like to move on to the next
Special?
one? Or the final topic?
I guess we can if you want to. So the refugee crisis. We kind of discussed this one with our guest host.
Yes, Gabriel
Mr. Gabe Mesa.
Yes, we'll
And
look at him on sometime soon.
definitely is another.
Yeah, and unfortunately, it seems that it is not going to get better anytime soon.
It's getting worse, if anything.
Oh, much worse. Now, obviously, I don't want to say this, but the reception to the refugees has become much more positive than I thought it would be.
Definitely.
With the Pope encouraging Catholic families
Very
to take
accepting.
refugees. Germany stating that they can take in, I believe, 500,000 refugees a year.
Ridiculous numbers.
But I don't know how this could affect Germany's economy because obviously they're going to have to pay for these social services and this sort of thing.
Yep.
Which of course could definitely lead to the German right, or the, I guess, farther right than Angela Merkel.
Farther right.
Hopefully not the German far right, as we've seen in the past.
Far right.
Yes, but just more conservative Germans being opposed to this, obviously, and could give them more say. In addition to this, I was just saying that these seem to be refugees leaving horrible war-torn situations.
Definitely.
But again, it does also seem like a terrorist organization such as ISIS could easily use this ability to get somebody into these nations without having to worry about anything. And hopefully this won't happen. But if any act of terror whatsoever is connected to this, I was recently listening to a news report this morning, so I'm sorry if I sound like I'm plagiarizing.
Right.
But if any act of terrorism is connected to the refugees, it could come. It won't stop it, but it will horribly damage it.
It will damage the
and will just
view
cause
on it.
more partisanship, I suppose, in these nations as well. With the
For
divides
sure.
like that.
For sure. No, I agree 100% with that statement.
All right. So, you have anything to add?
I'm trying to think about something to say, but I think 500,000 refugees a year in Germany. You think about that? That's ridiculous.
That seems especially hard. I mean,
For several years that they said they could do that for.
solely refugees. That is very surprising. I mean, imagine if the U.S. said we're going to take in 500,000 illegal immigrants every single year for a couple years. I mean, people would be furious.
Republicans would be.
And Germany's a much smaller nation than the U.S.
For sure. I don't know how they're going to do it.
Yeah, hopefully they will be able to and continue because Germany's not been having a great year.
For sure.
But hopefully they will be able to pull through. All right.
All right. So this is our special, and we had this plan. It might take up a little bit more than this episode, but I'm pretty sure we can all do it. We can do it in one little segment.
Yeah, I think we should be able to.
So what we're doing here is that we, as Clark discussed, we're going to take the post-45 presidents, which can be referred to as the modern presidents, and we're going to see. Me and him made a list of like our worst to best presidents. That's how I did it.
Yeah, we just tried to rank them in the way we could. And of course, as we stated before, we know FDR was technically a post, I suppose. Well, if you only say post 45, like starting from 46 on, then he doesn't count. So let's just say it as that.
Yeah, we're not going to include FDR.
So the end of the war, World War II, to today.
Yep. So you want to start with your list?
Sure. How about we both just read our list and then kind of debate the differences in ours?
All right, you go first.
Okay, I'll go first. Would you like me to state my reasons?
do that after.
Okay, I'll just give you the basic list. And again, this was very briefly drawn up.
This in about 5 minutes.
Yeah, so we apologize if some things are out. Again, as we've always stated in all shows, any and all opinions are subject to change at any time.
School hit us hard, so we're trying to...
we're trying to get back together. We
I don't know how many days it's been. It's been almost 5 days.
Yes, so we want to be able to get actually, hopefully we can have a guest host coming soon. We try to get back on our feet and handle the workload. All right, so for me, I picked Carter, Ford, Obama, W. Bush, H.W. Bush, LBJ, Truman, Nixon, JFK, Clinton, Eisenhower, and Reagan. So,
all right, I'll read mine now. This is from worst to best too. Jimmy Carter, Gerald Ford, Richard Nixon, Harry Truman, Barack Obama, George W. Bush, Bill Clinton, George H.W. Bush, LBJ, Eisenhower, JFK, and Ronald Reagan.
Yes.
So we both have the consensus that Carter's the worst on the list and Ronald Reagan's the best on the list.
So yeah,
I think it's fair.
How about we go from worst to best? Why do you think Carter just didn't cut it?
First thing that came to my mind is the way he handled the economy and the terrible way he bombed it. The next thing that came to me was his foreign policy and just a blunder. The 79 hostage crisis.
Mm-hmm.
I think that lost him the presidency right there.
Yeah, I think that was definitely in the minds of voters.
Yeah.
Didn't help him. It just killed him, basically.
Definitely.
Yeah, I completely agree. The economy wasn't doing great.
No.
He didn't help it.
No.
One of the best post-presidents, though, I'll say that. Wasn't good in office, out of office, though. He's been able to do wonders for the world.
He's a great guy.
And yeah, we're very sorry to hear about his illness, and we hope he is able to
recover. Get well soon.
I unfortunately don't think he has been planning on recovering, but I hope he is able to continue to do what he loves.
Brighten our days.
Yes. All right, so then we, both of us, put Ford as our next.
And the reason I put Ford on there is because he really didn't do anything famous.
Well, Carter didn't really do anything good. Ford didn't. He survived 2 assassination attempts. I'll give him that.
Gerald Ford?
Yes, 2 very unsuccessful assassination attempts.
All right.
So yeah, he's quite a lucky guy.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes, they're very interesting. I don't think we have time to go into detail about them here, but if you do, feel free to look them up. Charlie Manson is involved.
Really?
Yes. He did not directly attempt them, though.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But, all right, so, yeah, he just...
Didn't do anything. I think he did. I'm trying to think of something he did do.
Help recover from Nixon, the disdain that the... So, of course, for this list, we both tried to remove scandals from this. So, basically, we're trying to view this solely as presidencies. So we aren't going to try to take the... We may take honesty into an account, but for the most part, we aren't going to consider the Watergate and Lewinsky scandals as much. We're going to try it solely based on their actions as president.
Okay.
All right, so then here's where we had our first difference.
I had Nixon.
And I had
the third
Obama.
worst. I think the reason is that I said that he resigned because of the Watergate scandal. I think he was a crook. If we took that part out, he would have been a lot higher. But I think that's the main part for me.
If you include that, he would have been much lower. I tried to exclude the Watergate scandal and focus solely on what he accomplished during his time in office.
He won by a huge margin in his second term, like one of the largest in history.
I can't believe he...
Because the first was Ronald Reagan, but
the
second was, I think, Richard Nixon in his second term.
So for me, with President Obama, so I have him much lower than I feel. It's just I tried to work things in. I feel like he seems unfairly low on the list. I of course think he has been done a horrible job in terms of foreign policy.
I will agree with that.
I think the Iraq War, people have said wasn't handled well. I feel he handled it worse.
Okay.
He didn't stand up to Putin.
He didn't at all.
Iran.
He was weak.
Nothing. Yeah, he was
weak
with Iran, weak with Putin, weak with Cuba.
Yeah.
He's just opened relations with them without giving us anything.
Jeez,
But in terms of the economy, hasn't done great. He has been adding jobs.
Yeah, he has.
So of course he did credit where credit is due. But I feel we can of course do better. And I personally feel that McCain and Romney would have done better.
I don't think McCain would have done better, but neither Romney. But I personally think that Truman was the next best, I assume, if we're going after Nixon.
So we're just going to move up then?
Yeah.
All right. So you put Truman?
Yeah.
So why do you think Truman's only number 4?
I heard a bunch of polls, not taken from the time as well and from now, had scholars placing him, they had his worst approval ratings, like for an average term, because we all know W. Bush had the lowest approval rating of all time in like one single instant.
Yeah.
But Truman had I think his average approval rating during his first term was 40%.
Oh.
Which is terrible, to say the least. He
President
bombed
Obama's
Japan.
Only around 45.
He bombed Japan, whether he had to do it or not. You can debate that whatever you want. I think that's why people look down on him.
I think that was a very big positive in my opinion. He ended the war.
He did.
I know many people.
But there could have been. I think there could have been other more peaceful ways he could have handled that.
I feel that was unfortunately the most peaceful way to handle the war. They're still issuing Purple Hearts minted in 1945 to prepare for how many casualties they expected during the invasion of Japan. I mean, they were expecting at least 1 million U.S. casualties, millions upon millions of Japanese casualties. I feel that unfortunately it was brutal, but at least it ended a war that would have been much more brutal.
Okay.
I feel, and also though, at the time they didn't know the massive effects of radiation. To them, They just thought it was a really big explosion.
Yeah.
So of course, the threat of nuclear radiation has been a horror, but I feel that in the long term, it has helped more than it has hurt.
Now, after Truman, I had Obama for the same reasons that you had.
You had Truman?
Obama.
Okay, and so when I put Truman, I had W. Bush. I put W. Bush kind of lower on the list because some of his positives. Oh, sorry, our table is cracking, I believe. Some of his positives, he helped the nation recover from 9/11.
Yeah.
Which I think deserves some major props.
Yeah, Iraq War, whether you agree with it or not.
The war in Afghanistan, he was able to start to take out the Taliban, and the Iraq War, he was able to topple Saddam. Whether you oppose it or not,
the goal.
You do have to admit that he didn't do this. Of course, knowing what we know now, many people say that
it wouldn't.
He probably wouldn't have other presidents have stated they probably wouldn't have. Some some candidates have stated they wouldn't have. But I feel he wasn't really able to help stop the housing market crash.
No.
And with that, I feel he could have handled it better.
I think
but
so.
I overall again feel he's a little. It seems like he's lower than I think he should have been.
Yeah.
But,
I think so too.
I think overall he shouldn't be as hated as he is.
I had Bush above Obama actually. I thought he was a better president. I thought he couldn't really control the 2007-2008. That was at the end of his term.
Yeah,
Obama could have handled it, and he kind of did.
He's handled it all right.
I think he has. I mean, we're not having a surplus, but...
Yeah, of course, the other thing is the national debt. One of the reasons Obama, I forgot to mention, was so low is because just the national debt has just...
blown.
Skyrocketed under his administration. And it unfortunately seems like we may not live to see an era where the U.S. is not in debt. All right, so who's next on your list?
I have Bill Clinton after George W. Bush.
You have Bill after George W?
Yeah.
I have, after George W., I have H.W.
Okay.
So why'd you put Bill at, I think, number 6?
I thought overall he did good things. He was liked by the American people. He had almost 70% approval ratings every time he did something. Usually it was above 60%. He appealed to the younger voters, I feel, definitely.
I think he was able to it was a peacetime presidency. Things were happy.
And he experienced a surplus.
That definitely gives him big points. I have him very
dot-com era, that sort of thing.
He was able to do that. If I included the Lewinsky scandal, I have him much lower because I feel it's horribly dishonest, and I personally think he should have been
impeached.
Well, he was impeached. I think he should have been forced to resign.
Yeah.
Because of that. All right. So I had HW because unfortunately, so he was obviously his pros. I'll start with that. He oversaw the end of the Cold War.
What Reagan kind of set that up.
Yeah, unfortunately though, he oversaw it. He didn't really set it up, and also he just wasn't really able to do much there. He of course was involved in the Gulf War, which I feel was
a success.
It was a success, obviously, which is possible again a plus. But he didn't. The no new taxes thing hurt him, of course.
Yeah.
Definitely. It just goes against a major conservative tenet of no new tax. Whether you support taxes or not, he went against one of his campaign promises.
Exactly.
A lot of presidents do, but when something was that well publicized, read my lips. It's just that can hurt him.
I didn't have him. I just thought that he was slightly better than Bill Clinton because I think again I took into account the Monica Lewinsky scandal, but I still had him pretty decently high because of what he did. But George H.W. Bush, I thought he was a decent guy, and he had the Reagan. He won by a decent margin, but he lost in '92 because he made the fatal mistakes of the debate. I think that was a major cause. Remember?
Yes.
Looked at his watch.
I think the debate.
And also Ross Perot kind of set him up. For failure.
And the other thing is, I guess Ross Perot, man. Ross Perot was.
I wouldn't mind having a Ross Perot presidency.
It would have been so interesting to see what happened. And up until I think in July of the election year, he was beating both Bush and Clinton. Which
Really?
is amazing. Yes, but then he ended up splitting the vote, which I think... So again, it's not entirely his fault that he lost, I feel. If Ross Perot hadn't run, I think you definitely could have seen Bush.
Definitely.
The second term.
Definitely.
But overall, yeah, all right. So I think I may be a little bit behind you.
Yeah.
In the list. So my next above HW was LBJ. His pluses were the civil rights. I think involvement in Vietnam, whether or not you're opposed to Vietnam or not, he was helping to stop communism and stop a brutal regime from killing people.
Right.
If you oppose America's action in Vietnam, that's perfectly fine. But I mean, he at least
Most people
tried to do something to stop it.
Yeah.
But of course, con, again, involvement in Vietnam, depending on what your opinions are. If you hate Vietnam, of course, that should be a big one up there. But there was massive violence at home during his
Definitely.
president, and he wasn't really able to recover from that as much, and just that he kind of got his own party hated him. He wasn't really able to do as much towards the end of his term.
Right. Yeah, he was definitely a huge civil rights supporter. Unlike the
But
other.
civil rights, I think, was a big plus for him, and overall, he was kind of able to, I guess, successfully, not as successfully, but he didn't stop what Kennedy, who is higher on my list, did in his tracks.
Yeah.
All right, who's your next?
After George H.W. Bush, LBJ, and pretty much because he continued everything that JFK wanted to do before he died, which is a great thing to do as vice president, and he really just kept the legacy going, and he made his mark. He was a good president, in my opinion.
All right. Okay, so mine after LBJ was Truman, because I think he ended the war. He helped start with the Truman Doctrine, the Marshall Plan. He helped. He stood up to the Soviets in Korea.
He did do that. I'll give him that.
So yeah, I give him big points for that.
Yeah, actually, I agree with you on that.
All right, who's your next? Because mine's gonna make you.
Eisenhower.
You had Eisenhower?
Eisenhower, because
so I'm one behind you.
I respect him. He's a military man. He heavily succeeded in World War II.
Yes, Eisenhower's my second.
He was a moderate, so he appealed to almost everybody, and he was very positive, or he was looked up to as a positive president in office and outside of office, and that's why I would put him at number 3. He's your good president.
So I'll just get through my next two, just so we're like up on back, or actually I'm quite a bit behind you.
Okay.
So I'll try to get through a couple. So my next was Nixon, based solely on his presidency and not on Watergate.
I think there's a little bit of West Coast bias going down here.
I used to live in the same town that Nixon grew up in for like
That's
6
why.
months. My parents also grew up there, and my mom went to the same high school as him. But I did not know that, actually, when I first learned about Richard Nixon. And of course, the Watergate scandal, he lied.
Terrible.
That was horrible. He unfortunately, I feel, deserved to leave office.
Yeah.
But in terms of what he did, he was able to kind of end Vietnam without it being as horrible as it could have been, like an end to the war. The U.S., of course, it's been considered to be defeated, although we technically never signed the treaty of surrender. But he was able to at least end it with some dignity. Yeah. He was able to open relations with China,
which is good.
He was overall able to kind of have a conservative boom and kind of provide. He was able to appeal to the silent majority, which I think definitely helped him. But again, this is solely based on that. And I apologize if it appears as though I was biased there. I actually knew a person. I met a man who used to play football with him, but he
pretty bad president.
My grandpa got to meet him. He came up his street one time. But overall, I don't think he was a terrible president. I think he was first term. I think he was good. First term is what ends him up on this list. The second term does not.
Okay.
Or as much.
That's
of
fair.
course, the relation with China occurred in his second term, but still.
That's fair.
All right. So then I'll just because I'm trying to catch up.
Yeah, keep going.
My third. Actually, we should vote. So my fourth. Was JFK. For his handling of the Cuban Missile Crisis, huge plus. He avoided the end of the world.
I would agree.
Camelot, just kind of making things happy, hope, change. I'm quoting Obama things here, but basically, he got Americans kind of happy. Ask not what you can do, or ask not what your country can do, ask what you can do for your country. But then, of course, some cons were the Bay of Pigs invasion.
That's definitely huge.
Which definitely hurt him. And overall, unfortunately, I feel he is mainly remembered very positively for his
assassination.
Of course, I put him higher on this list for this. But also, and if you want to go into personal scandal, he was quite a lot worse than Bill Clinton, who gets quite a lot of. Bill gets a lot of shame for his scandal, but JFK.
You're right. You got it.
He was the original. Or, well, it seems like Warren G. Harding may have been. But
Oh yeah, that's true. That's true.
he took what Warren G. Harding did and I won't say improved because that seems like a wrong word to use, but he most definitely expanded.
For
upon
sure.
it. Yeah. All right, then you've already put Clinton. My number 3 was Clinton because he had the budget surplus.
I agree. Yeah, that's a
Massive
huge
peacetime
plus.
expansion. All right, so now we're down to our 2. Who was your 2?
I had not Eisenhower. I had JFK for almost the same reasons. I think definitely the Cuban Missile Crisis was probably not the Cuban Missile Crisis, but the Bay of Pigs invasion in particular was a huge, probably his biggest downside in his short tenure in office. And I think, like LBJ, but he didn't really learn about civil rights or began to support it until the very end of his presidency, I would say. Mm-hmm. Sadly, but he had a great agenda in mind.
But he didn't really take action.
Right. And he had a great agenda in mind, which he never got to continue. But LBJ helped him, and definitely unfortunate.
That's why you like LBJ so much.
And yeah, the Cuban Missile Crisis was definitely a huge plus, and JFK, second best, in my opinion.
All right, so I put Eisenhower. Some of the reasons you put him, because he was able to, with the Korean War, he was able to handle it well. He was able to, I suppose, diffuse the conflict as best that we've been able to for the past couple of years there.
Yeah.
He was a moderate conservative, was very bipartisan.
Definitely.
He had a lot passed. Was able to kind of start the civil rights movement, I suppose. Of course, I don't mean he started. Obviously, the civil rights movement was started by the people who were being oppressed. But he was the first person that kind of, Truman took action in desegregating the military.
Right.
But Eisenhower also helped, Brown versus the Board of Education. He was able to kind of start the ball rolling in terms of solely with presidents taking action. Of course, It was started by people. But also he stood up to communist China.
He did.
Which
he did back then.
In 1958 with the Taiwan Strait crisis, which my grandpa, who was the same one who met Nixon, got to see Nixon. I don't know if he got to meet him, but Nixon came up the street one time to visit an old friend.
Nice.
And my grandpa was involved in that and was able to, thankfully, not nuke China. Which I don't know if we would have nuked China, but I think we definitely would have gone to war with them.
Yeah, for sure.
And then, all right, our number 1,
Ronald Reagan. Great guy. I mean, what's not to?
Yeah, he is the best.
I mean, the only bad thing you can maybe pin to him, the Iran-Contra. That's the only thing that I can really say that's bad.
He's the Teflon president. You can't pin it to him.
Yeah, exactly. I think he was one of the best presidents we ever had overall, if we did this overall, but definitely best on the modern list.
I think he's at least top 5 overall. Maybe not top, but he's in the, I can see him.
I'd say top 10.
5 overall.
Or top 10.
Top 10, top 5 overall, most definitely, hands down, number 1.
And Ronald Reagan, I see him, foreign policy, he pretty much brought down the Soviet Union.
He was responsible for pretty much the end of the Soviet Union. He stood up to terrorism. He helped limit the government. He was awesome.
He was everything we love, my friends.
And I will. This is not West Coast bias at all because
that's not. No, I think he was a great president.
Oh yeah, he was amazing. He was, of course, the Iran-Contra deal was the only thing, and he didn't really stick to him. He was able to do this. He was able to. Back then, clearly being the oldest president was kind of considered one of his detriments, and nobody even cares about that today because of how awesome
he was. Good jokes.
He could tell good jokes. He got shot and still...
he survived at 70-something.
He was telling jokes as he was in the hospital. He's just one of the most charismatic leaders we've had.
He's a great guy.
Yeah, he hands down deserves this.
Definitely.
All right.
So that was our top 10 or top something modern presidents.
Yeah, sorry.
Because there's more than 10. There's like 12 or 13.
13, I believe.
Yep. So we'll try to make episodes frequently.
We'll try to make them more frequently. We obviously have had quite a lot of issues in the past because of just
homework.
It
can be hours at a time, so it's hard to meet up and schedule these things. And guest hosts are even harder, but we're definitely going to try to get some on the show.
We're going to keep working at it. And so... yeah, I think that kind of...
it's a good episode. It's a decent night.
Yeah, like we said, we're going to work on more intros. We're going to work on getting more guest hosts.
Get some visuals.
Getting visuals.
Work on some editing. Maybe. We could try that.
So please, again, suggest any and all suggestions you have.
In the comments, if you're still listening.
Yeah. Sorry if I've been saying, and pausing too much. I will work on that. But yeah, I think that pretty much covers it.
Yeah, we're good. All right, well.
All right then.
I'm Jack Horvath.
I'm Clark Wahlberger.
We'll see you next time, whenever that is.
Auf Wiedersehen.
Adios.